Hi, my name is Ken Lasserson, and I am an active microbiome researcher. I run a blog on microbiomeprescription.com. And in this video, I want to do a recap of what I've learned about a microbiome, walk through the steps which often people are doing themselves, but not realizing some of the mistakes they're making, and then showing what I think at the moment is the best gold standard for looking at the microbiome and fixing microbiome related issues. So, with that much said, let's go in and proceed to walk. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go through and go a quick introduction. I'm going to walk through the growth, not the growth of the bacteria, but the growth of my understanding of bacteria, and then look at some key questions. Example gold standard, what next? So it's going to meander a little bit, but the intent is to cover the key points. Okay, let's start first of all with who I am and how did I get here. So, quick introduction to myself. Why did I get started? First, I'm a non-medical professional. In fact, I was advised not to go into medicine or engineering by many professors. And why? Very simple. They told me I was too creative and non-conforming. Medicine and engineering are extremely strict discipline to conform to standards, which is often a MD will say, okay, you bring a new research paper, wonderful new things coming for a new drug, and they would look at it and say, okay, that's nice, but it's not in the standard of treatment. In a story, 99% the MD will not go any further because part of their training is to be conforming. Same with engineering. Engineering is very rigorous to keep to existing standards. Myself, I tend to be creative and non-conforming. Professors saw that, they enjoyed it, but they also said, be careful. These two ones will be non-careers for you because if you go into them, you get trained for them, you won't have a career in them because it violates all the rules of the career. So I ended up being reasonable. I said, okay, let's take that advice seriously. So I ended up with a Master of Science in Statistics and Operations Research, accepted for a PhD program, and got tempted away by industry, so I never got around to doing the PhD. Did a few PhD courses, but I never completed a degree. Those areas are well respected and valued for being creative and non-conforming. In fact, ended up in a software industry where being creative and non-conforming is extremely well rewarded. And I've gotten several patents granted, which implies that, hey, I have creativity, I can think outside the box. So that's my background. In other words, I'm sitting over here well, at one point in time over at Microsoft, at Amazon, Verizon, a whole bunch of different companies, doing my creativeness, my non-conforming, solving problems, and being given lots of tough problems to solve, which I did well. Um, but then what happened was family members had health issues. But basically, the MD did not know how to treat or address. In some cases, the best they could do was doing symptom relief, but not causation relief. So it was frustrating. Family members care for them. So it was the beginning of the voyage. Was not because I was interested in making a profession, but because I was interested because of emotional involvement with family members. So these issues may be gut related, and it's an absolutely logical step, which most of you probably are doing already, which is get a gut level microbiome test and fix the issues reported. Nice and simple. Order the test, waited 6 weeks for the results to come in, and got a result like shown on the left. The name of a bunch of bacteria, what level I had, and whether and what the expected range. Some cases like here, or like Lactobacillus paracasi, I'm low compared to the relative abundance ranges. And here you need to, here we'll come back to it later, but notice the word that says relative abundant range. It doesn't say healthy range. It says relative abundant range. Some people may mislabel it as healthy range, but one should be careful. So that's basically it. So got a whole bunch of things there, say, oh, too high or too low of this thing. Okay, that's what odd. Then, of course, walked into the next bit of thing. Lab reports information. They do not provide advice. The original test was done by Ubiome, which has since gone bankrupt, mainly because of venture capital issues. And there is a very strong professional dividing line between a lab report data, lab reports the data. Do you have high cholesterol, low cholesterol, etc.? The medical professional consumes the data and gives advice. So the result is the report I got from the lab, I did not expect to give advice. Some and most professional, very professional, like chemical microbiome labs today will not give any advice. They'll just give you the raw numbers. There are retail or other microbiome testing companies which will also provide advice, and generally with the advice of that this advice should be reviewed by a practical medical professional. In many cases, they are working with medical professionals, updating the education of the medical professionals. Okay, so let's go back to where we were. Basically, the problem was the family MD had no idea how to advise on the data they got. There's a lab result. Okay, no clue whatsoever. And the reason is very simple. They have never been trained in this discipline. And the catch is, most of the data for the microbiome has come out in the last 5 to 10 years. Most of them finished their training more than 10 years ago. None of this data was available. So their ignorance is actually not unexpected. They don't have time to get trained appropriately or deeply enough for the microbiome. So there's a problem there, and there's no easy solution for that problem. So I did what most of you are probably doing, or many of you, and using a search engine. Nowadays, instead of saying search engine, it would be large language model, a AI engine to find bacteria that changes. At this point in time, this was before AI came along, so it was search engines. Today, you would be using probably an AI to find anything to change the bacteria. Okay, go there, you find something. Okay, oh, I found something to change this. Oh, I found something to change that there. And often you will stop at the very first item you find, because that is quote sufficiency. And by human nature, you are lazy, or people are lazy. So let's go on from there. Let's see what the outcome. Next test came back, was a shock. Some bacteria improved, others got a lot worse. So that got me saying, okay, why didn't things work? I was expecting work. After all, it says this improves that, that improves that. Oh, then the reality comes in. No modifiers affect only one thing. I was addressing one thing, but what it was using affect other things that went the wrong direction. Effectively, it could be described as shooting oneself in the foot. When using search or when using large language models generally will not handle well if you say, okay, I have these 16 bacteria too high and these 4 bacteria too low. I've tried it and the results have been absolutely horrible. They just have not come out with good results, or the results are more than likely incorrect. So what was the outcome of this realization? Very simple. I created a database of modifiers to bacteria because I needed to try to figure out what to take, and the easiest way with my skill set was to create a database of it. Some people could end up opening up a card file and start using that. Also a legitimate approach. My skill level was to use a database. And then I went and did something foolish. I placed the database online for the benefit of all. So the result is you can go to my site, microbiomeprescription.com, and look at modifiers and see what this particular modifier increases or decreases according to published studies. Or you could take a look at a bacteria and look up the bacteria and see what increases it or decreases it. So the information is there, much faster to obtain, much easier, much quicker, and probably more accurate than randomly searching the web or trusting AI. So that was my first step of on the internet, which is just basically data sharing. I extracted the data, put it in a database, and rather than having other people repeat this work ad nauseum, I did it. So even got a few people to help me at the beginning for a while to populate the database because it benefits everybody. It made it easier to find the data you needed to apply to fixing the microbiome. Okay, and hey, by cooperation, why should I charge or anybody charge for it? It's for the good of all mankind. Okay, now, what happened was not unexpectedly, figuring out everything became a bit of a challenge for people. I mean, wait a minute, okay, you have all this data, but this data is too much. It's too hard to figure out what to do. So what I ended up doing was, again, because I haven't had good computer skills and know how to build and how to know how to build websites. I've built them for many people. I allowed people to upload the results. Originally, it was just a uBiome CSV. Downloads were uploaded. They made the downloads available. Sweet, easy to import, easy to put in a database, easy to compute likely suggestions from those outside the range provided by the uBiome. In other words, mechanize what I was doing manually originally and make it easy for anybody to go and get suggestions. Nice and simple there. And the basic mechanism are up there right now on the microbiome prescription. You have the suitable upload, you can upload it and it will do it. And I've for consistency, I've kept the original methods and additional methods there. So I don't have one magical solution for everything. I have a variety of suggestions because if a suggestion works reasonably well or method works, I tend to keep it there because I don't know what the perfect solution is. I have suspicions better of what a better solution is, but I still don't know what the perfect solution is. So now I have my online, I have my database of modifiers and bacteria, sweet. And now I have more and more people uploading samples to my database. And once I hit about 300 or 400 samples from new biome, perhaps reaching 500, I did what any person well trained in statistics would do. My statistical training discover, and then discovered something which was disappointing, which was shocking. I discovered the ranges were very inappropriate. You biome assume a bell curve, and most microbiome testing company will you assume a bell curve because that is part of the conditioning or training most which most lab technicians are trained. They're always taught to use bell curve, always, and that's the problem. They do what they were trained to do, and they do it perfectly well. The problem was it was not appropriate. Basically, I look at the data, and it failed every test for being a bell curve. Every single test. And let's do a visual representation. Here we have, up above, we have what a bell curve looks like. Okay, hey, everybody see that. Now, let's take a look at bacteria. Wait a minute. That's the bacteria. That doesn't look like that. It's a whole different creature from a whole different world. And what a bell curve has is that the average, which is here, the mean, which is with 50% above and 50% below, is almost the same spot. And the most common value is sitting right there. And here is where the median is. Okay, 50% above and below. And somewhere we have the average up here. What? The average is 90%. So 90% of people have below average and 10% have above average. Yes. Here is 50-50. With bacteria, it is not that way. And the most common one happens to be something about way down here at the bottom, about the 10th percentile. Just sort of, everything's supposed to be together for a bell curve. It's not. It's all over the place. So what I did was logical. I divided range to determine abnormal values for each bacteria that are statistically valid for given the shape of the data. And believe me, that was a pain in itself. So that was a step forward. At least I was identifying bacteria which were out of normal range or normal expected value, which is good. Okay, let's run with that. That's good. And that is what I ran with for a couple of years. But there was something which was troubling with me. And what was troubling is I was identifying abnormal bacteria. And that's not what I was really wanting to do. Abnormal is not healthy, not unhealthy. Key word, there's a difference here. And most people miss this thing because they just look at, oh, it's abnormal, therefore it's not healthy. Wrong. Baseball players or a person with dwarfism are both abnormal people compared to the general population. They are not unhealthy. They're abnormal. Doesn't mean unhealthy. A vegetarian in the U.S. has a very much an abnormal diet, especially if they live in Texas. They are not unhealthy. In fact, they may be healthier. In other words, being abnormal is healthier than being normal. Keep that in mind because we'll come back to it. 1 in 200 people has an extra cerebral rib. They're not healthy. There are no particular illnesses or sicknesses connected with it. In fact, now I'm sure there may be less illnesses connected with having an extra rib. Uh, or as my Sunday school teacher said, "Oh, wait a minute. Or we start one Eve. After all, the rib's supposed to come out and create Eve from the rib, and if there's extra rib that's indicate polygamy is supposed to be happening because of the extra rib. Okay, so my attempt at humor or dad's humor. 1 in 25 people have freckles, and they are not unhealthy. If they have freckles, especially pronounced, chances are they're Northern European and very prone to sunburn, but they are not per se unhealthy. Using abnormal ranges has a problem. You may be taking phantom non-issue. You may be fixing things which has no health impact whatsoever. So you are basically trying to bail out a river effectively, and the river just keeps coming, keep bailing, and you wonder why the water doesn't go down. Well, excuse me, you need to dam the river, not bail the river. If there are no other data, I should be honest, it is a reasonable temporary action. And that's what I was using for many years and still have the site allowing that mindset to be used. Because my job is to give you options, not to dictate this is the way to do it. My goal is to give you things which are more likely to help than not help. And to provide science behind, statistical science, be able to demonstrate with numbers. The correct approach is to use something called odds ratio. And there are many articles about it, and some MDs are knowledgeable and they understand it very much. So let's look at what odds ratios are. And odds ratio are simply if you do this thing, then the odds of something happening goes up or goes down. Very simple. If you elect a very unpopular politician at a state level to whoever in charge nationally, you may not get there's a good odds that you're not going to be getting the grants that you're hoping to get. Now, if you're very friendly to the national, you like to get a lot of odds. Again, it's odds ratio. Let's take some non-political example. Smoking more than 30 cigarettes per day increases the chance of one particular type of cancer by 103-fold. In other words, 103 times more likely. That is a whoppingly big risk. Some people are risk takers or they don't care about risk. They deem themselves to be above, deem themselves to be effectively divine. Nothing is going to affect them. I don't care. I am going to ignore it. I have no care about the odds of this hurting me. 1 to 5 cigarettes is a tenfold increase. Even that little amount is a big. 1 to 10 is it's up increases a bit more. And as you keep going, as the amount keeps changing, the amount of impact keeps changing. Beer is similar. 1 beer per day, a slight risk increase in cancer risk. 2 beers per day, you have increased risk of liver, blood pressure, and cancer. 3 beer or more, much more. Heavy binge drinking, you are looking for all sorts of health issues. Now, the question is, do you pay attention to the odds and live healthily, or do you say, well, who cares? I want to enjoy life, and you busy there in the pub guzzling down beers and smoking like mad, assuming your pub still allows you to smoke inside, and etc. So those are odds ratio. And if you're trying to be healthy, a rational person pays attention to odds ratio. If you're trying to keep a lifestyle or not to be inconvenienced, you ignore the odds ratio. That's simple human reality, human behavior. Okay, now, how do you get odds ratio? Well, here it becomes a little bit more complicated. It's not a easy because you need three things to do it. One is you need large sample sizes. You need large sample sizes of people with what you are detecting, for example, cancer risk. And you need, or people who have cancer to be more precise, and 500 cases of people who don't have it. So, take a case of smoking. The 500 you're detecting, the 500 you are not detecting, are usually, for this case, it would be smokers and non-smoker. There's also, I remember a case where it was done with different types of bacteria impact cancer risk if they are found in a microbiome test, which is good stuff. Next thing you need, accurate annotation. And this becomes a bit of a pain because if the only annotation you're using is something like stomach issues, you're going to find you're going to get a lot less odds ratio, a lot less accurate data coming out than if you have something much more defined, much more restricted, like a Crohn's disease. Or even better, you have Crohn's disease with diabetes and mast cell activation syndrome. If you can get 500 people with that, you can do very, very accurate, high odds ratio for what particular things are associated with this. Vagueness usually decreases ratio and decreases significance, and sometimes cause something that may actually be significant to disappear because your annotation is too vague. You're too much waving the hands around. And that can become an issue with some people, or with some people taking a look at data. They're using too broad definitions, so the result is they're not getting data results out because the definition is too broad. The third thing you need is you need accurate input measurement. Above we had the number of cigarettes per day or beers per day. With a microbiome, it is the amount of the bacteria. Now here we hit a catch-22. If all the data was done with identical same tests, you can use percentages. That's fine. You can use percentages and everything works beautifully. If you are having to take data from tests from different studies, who uses even the slightest minuscule change in methodology, then you cannot use percentages. It's totally invalid because the percentages will disagree on the same sample process through a different one. And I've done a blog post called the Taxonomy Nightmare Before Christmas, which I give you the literature. I've personally talked to the head of NIST, National Institute of Standard Technology, Microbiome Leadership one, and basically you get one sample, go through an analyzer, and you get a digital file. So there's no uncertainty, a digital file. You process it through all the different pipelines available. You will get over 100 different answers. Some of the answers say this bacteria doesn't exist. Never methods will say it exists but only in a small amount. And the third test will say it exists in an outrageously high amount and it's far, far too high. You need to reduce it. Part one is too low. You need to increase it. The third one says, what bacteria? I don't see it. That's a part of the nightmare of the microbiome. So basically, to simplify life back down, it's the same test, you want the percentage. If it's mixed tests, you use the percentile. My data source happens to be data from several different labs, so I ended up using percentile ranking, which is not ideal, but it does give reasonably good, reliable results. And I have had that reviewed by several people, and they agree, yeah, that is the best you can do. Not ideal, but it is a reasonable and does produce good results. Okay, now, so you go and you do your analysis and you have your odd ratios done. And that's focused only on one condition. We're not going to look at what associated with Crohn's disease or what associated with diabetes or with obesity. We're going to be very simple. We're going to go for what is associated with a person being healthy and what associated with a person being unhealthy. And for that, I have a whole bunch of samples which people have declared themselves to be healthy or have been reviewed to be healthy, as in the medical records being reviewed. And that is a reference set from a clinical lab. So I have 1,000 samples that. Plus, in terms of upload, I have people able to declare if they are healthy or not, or have any one of literally hundreds of different conditions or symptoms. So I have a whole bunch of people who are various states of unhealthy with a host of different conditions, and have a bunch of people who are deemed healthy. So those are my sets. Now, uh, we're going to focus on healthy people, and so if something comes up with odds ratio greater than 1, it means this is more likely to indicate somebody who is healthy. If it's less than 1, it indicates the person this is reversed. If the odds ratio is greater than 1, the person is likely to be healthy. If it's less than 1, it indicates the person is likely to be unhealthy. I will correct that. And then we have the third one is range with no statistical significance. Doesn't meet the criteria for significance, in which case it is, hey, we offer no opinion on it. It is a new. Some bacteria will have one and only one of these two range types. Another bacteria will have the other one. Some bacteria will have none, and some bacteria will have high and low range, both healthy and unhealthy ranges. In other words, if you over this amount, it's unhealthy. Below this amount, it's healthy. And then there's a region between them where we offer no opinions whatsoever. So that's the thing to understand. There are three states: definitely healthy, definitely unhealthy, and we can say, and we go for high probability because we don't want to be doing false actions against things which don't worry are not clearly significant. So, and what do we now? We are ready to perform. We want to move bacteria out of the healthy ranges, and if there is an unhealthy range and they are in the unhealthy range, we want to move them out. Just get them outside the range. Doesn't matter how far, just outside the range. If we have healthy ranges and the bacteria is not in the healthy range, we want to move it inside the healthy range. That's making it more healthy. It may be in an insignificant range now, but my preference is to move it into the healthy range because your goal is to make it more healthy. Okay, so at this point of time, let's take a look at an example report which I have just last week finally got in a presentable, releasable state. Okay, so here's an example of report. And when the report is very simple, we look at the top trinity or whatever. And what we do is we look at the significance here, which is 680, so it's extremely significant. And we look at anything up to 10%. Anything which is 68 or above and significant is as far down we go. Or we go down 60 or 20 bacteria, one way or the other. We are intentionally chopping off the number of bacteria because the more bacteria we have, the more likely we are going to have with no substance with one with other bacteria because what we're doing is we're filtering to only things that help bacteria which are selected and only help those and does not hurt a single one of them. In other words, it's absolutely it's not a question of counterindicated or counterproductive things. You are doing things which all literature indicates this should help you change these bacteria in the right direction without one single adverse effect against any others in this relatively short list. And we keep the list short because we're able to give the significance. And the significance is what is most important. What is next most important? What next important? You can see there's a big drop for this. This one is very recurring and it has a big unhealthy range. And look where the range is, 1 to 99. In other words, Hey, guess what? You don't want to have any of this bacteria. You want to decrease it. Absolutely decrease it. Next one is here, and it's a healthy 183. Well, generally when it sets this high for the upper range, my general attitude is going to decrease it. Here is another one which is more interesting. We are the 62 percentile, and the range is 5 to 63. And the program says, okay, you're in a healthy, but you are almost at the edge of the top of the unhealthy range. So what do you want to do? You want to increase it. You just want to push it up over the top. So what we have here are the substances that will shift things in the desired direction. You have over here, you see what type of substance it is, and you get a variety of names. Like here we have a renaming, and they're like, for example, arginine. Here's the chemical name. I tend to try to keep both common names and scientific names where possible, like we say mushrooms, and there's the actual biological name for it. So the first number is how many other bacteria are positively influences. So in this case we see four. Oh, awesome. So four other things are due there. You hear some substances which it says, okay, there's no substance without other. There are substances for this one because we restrict it only to bacteria where we have information on how to modify. But in this case, none of the modifiers have a positive impact on all the other ones or no impact. All the modifiers have an adverse effect on some of the bacteria selected. So in other words, we're going to leave this alone and hope for the best. Now up at the top here, I want to point out that we have a bifidobacteria which has a healthy range, but we want to decrease it. And why? Because it's too high. And reading medical studies, I do find that some bifidobacteria high amounts associated with certain medical conditions. So this makes total sense to me that the range is 1 to 73. There's no bottom, basically no bottom amount. If you have some, good, but if it's over 73 percentile, not percentages, percentile, then you probably want to decrease it because it has a health benefit to decrease it to get inside that range. So that's basically the report. It's done shown here, but in general, you'll find that all the bacteria, if you click it, will take you over to the microbiome prescription website and to the information about this particular bacteria. Here, similar, or it's a particular modifier. Similarly, these are going to be hyperlinked to the microbiome prescription website to where you get information about the species. So in other words, everything is going to be hyperlinked, and you can manually double check to make sure everything is in agreement with studies and trace back to the actual study data it's coming from. In other words, everything is there. You can check things absolutely to the full extent you care to. Now the question is availability. Well, good news is several microbiome testing firms are reviewing this approach and may be offering it in the future. Nobody is offering it that I'm aware of at the moment, but there are several firms which are reading the literature, which are look at the samples and are busy debating, do they walk down this path or don't they? And there's a variety of reasons for that, which will come to shortly. It is available on keyword. It's a free site. This is a site I put up. Um, I have no desire to make profit from it. It's for the common good, rather odd concept in today's financial world. I'm not in the pursuit of happiness with two vertical lines through the two S's. I am with dollar signs. It's there. People do make contributions to it. We help cover the running costs and sometimes help cover additional tests and other things, books, etc. So, but basically, it's supported. If nobody donates, I still will cover the running costs. But it's just a way of people to say thank you. If it does help them, send a donation. It's probably a donation far cheaper than what a single consultant anybody else does, and you get probably as good, if not better, information. And whenever somebody uploads to the site, this new report does automatically generate a report within a day or two, going back to the person, for all new tests done. And if person already has a test uploaded, you just go to the website. On the landing page, you see here, just click here, and it basically says, okay, you are now on the list to be processed. So somewhere with the next day or two, you should get your result generated. And why isn't it online interactively? Mainly because it does a ton of computing to get it. I mean, it is I think I use 2 gigabytes of memory to compute the report. So it is a expensive test to put online at a reasonable price. I will drive up my online bills horrendously. And since it's a free site, I prefer to do it this way, and it makes it somewhat friendlier. People don't have to figure out how to do it, etc. To just get informed, so they get a good basis. Okay, summary. The odds ratio data I'm using will change as a result. Ranges may change as more data is added. I have spot checked many of the ranges and find that they seem to be absolutely reasonable. Perhaps not perfect, but reasonable. For example, things like Legionella associated with Legionnaire disease. If you have any of it, it says get rid of it. If you take it out rickettsia diseases or rickettsia bacteria, it's the same thing. Have any, get rid of it. So for some particular bacteria, having any of it is deemed inappropriate. In other words, there's no abnormal range for that one. Actually, there may be an abnormal range because you have more or less than other people have. But the healthy range is to have none. Key differences. Abnormal range, yes, you can be in a normal range for just bacteria. Good, that's nice. Healthy range using odds ratio, there is no healthy range. You want to get rid of all of it. That is a major psychological change of framework. Healthy ranges versus reference ranges. Healthy ranges is what comes from odds ratio and comes only from odds ratio. Individual microbiome company could do exactly what I'm doing and do it more accurately, because they could just do it strictly on data from their own processing pipeline, which means they can go and use percentages and be as accurate as they want. And the data they get would be proprietary. It would be different than my ranges, which is fine. Um, which is fine. It's absolutely fine. My concern is getting better health advice. Part of the problem for microbiome testing is the trustworthiness of annotation on their samples. I have heard people often gripe, you go to the sample, they ask for a bunch of things, and they don't give the information. And I understand the problem well. And actually, I have a rubber silly solution for that. I predict symptoms from the sample, so when they go to the site, they see predicted symptoms from the sample, and all they are asked to do is click the ones that pass, and then there's an option they can look at the whole range of 400 symptoms I have, and click the ones I have. I'm not going by diagnosis, as in you know Crohn's disease. I'm going by do you have problems sleeping at night? Do you get fatigued easily? Um, do you suffer um, do you have IBS? Do you have multiple chemical sensitivity? I have a whole bunch of things there which comes out of symptoms people have asked to be put there. So if people ask for symptoms to be added, I add it to the list. Simple as that. I don't make a judgment call. I just add it to the list. So the result is my list consists of people not with diagnosed conditions, but people who are reporting significant symptoms. And that is how I ended up having high degree of trustworthiness of the annotation on my sample. And there are some people who don't do it, so that's nice. I not sure, but something like 60% gives annotation, sometimes very accurate annotations, and that now allows me to do what this whole process is. I needed that information to be able to separate healthy from non-healthy individuals and have a horrendous mixture of unhealthy individuals. Doing this for an individual company depends on the statistical skill level of their staff, not the ability for the staff to do canned formulas or to use an R square. It means actually old-fashioned hard skills, statistical level. Do they know how to calculate odds ratio if they're given a bunch of data on a piece of paper and the boss said, okay, calculate the odds ratio from this paper. If they have to go over and use the computer to do it, they don't have the skill levels. Simple as that. They have to, if they cannot do it manually on paper, they are, how to say, victims of automation of statistics. They are accustomed using R, accustomed using Python. They use it blindly, trusting that things are being done correctly. They don't know statistics. That's never a problem. And often those skill levels are extremely hard to find staff because those people tend to come at a very high salary cost because they are in high demand by industry. Um, Especially in the AI industry where you're talking about $500,000 a year salary as not being atypical. Whether or not a microbiome testing company does it depends on sales, support, and marketing attitude. When the report going back to the client says that you have too much lactobacillus, you have too much bifidobacterium, that is not what customers are expecting. And that ends up being support calls, education call, marketing attitude. It ends up being, wait a minute, this is a conflict between making people happy so they buy your test, and the flip side is informing and educating people correctly on the reality. I don't sell any tests. Hey, I don't have that problem. My concern is giving the best possible information to people to help them. Simple as that. And I work with multiple microbiome companies on a pro bono basis or nominal honorarium because my goal is not to make money. My goal is to improve. That I'm very happily retired at 73. Um, 401k for Microsoft days is, well, hey, I am very comfortably retired. So I'm not concerned about selling or making money. That's not my concern. My concern is humanity, people. And next item is one which I kept hearing microbiome company griping about is are they willing to invest in building stupidly large modifier database? Many of them have been trying to use large language model to extract data, and often they find when it's reviewed by humans afterwards, it does not do a particularly good job. Medical and study data tends to be obtusely written, and often the large language model coding just doesn't decompose the language correctly. Some of the long run-on sentences requires two or three looks. Sometimes I reasonably good, actually very good SRE scores have trouble figuring out exactly what they're trying to say, and frequently I end up having to go to appendices. That is what they actually meant, but they didn't say well what the numbers in the Excel spreadsheet attached actually says. Microphone scripts currently use 14 million facts with to build things out, and these are all derived from published studies. So the question is, are they willing to build up equivalent size database by whatever means they care to do it? One group I know uses grad students, lots of grad students to do review of modifier database, and they're building up slowly, and they are happy with the results. They're getting more data than I'm using, which is fine. But the question is, are they willing to invest? And it can be a big financial investment. So those are what I see the inhibitions for microbiome testing company doing it. They could do it. There's nothing stopping them. The question is, are they willing to do it? Are they willing to deal with the issues? Which me, a single person, running out of the garage, has been able to do it. Mind you, it's over several years or many long weekends to do it. The issue of counterindicated is addressed in the above approach to limit knowledge because I exclude anything that adversely affects any one of our top most significant bacteria. And the catch is using the chi-square, the significant numbers. It means that I now know which bacteria are more important than other bacteria. Most of the time, you see there are 10 bacteria which are out of range. Which one is most important? Excuse me, you're not going to see which one is more important because they don't tell you which one is more important. Let's take a look back at the test a few minutes back. This gives you a list of bacteria and range. The fact that you're out of range more for one bacteria than ever does not have any impact on whether or not it's more or less unhealthy. Keyword unhealthy. Yes, you can use that to figure out if it's quote more out of range, but to get more out of range to most microbiome lab statisticians means ones which has a greater number of standard deviations from the average. But the problem is standard deviation assume a bell curve Gaussian distribution, and that is invalid, which means that there's no saying supportable with evidence way of determining which one of these bacteria out of range is more important. It's just not possible with this type of data. So so the issue of counterindicated is addressed to the limit of current knowledge. And we know which ones to focus on because they're significant. We address the most significant one, which is calculated by mathematics. It's statistically supportable. We know which one is more significant for being unhealthy. In other words, which is more significant to having cancer? Having one beer a week or smoking 5 cigarettes a day? Well, guess what? Smoking 5 cigarettes a day is more significant than having a beer a day. So we are able to say, okay, what should you do? Oh, you should stop smoking that. That's far more important than stopping your one cold beer on a hot summer day when the temperature is 105 Fahrenheit or 42 Celsius. What is missing is the effectiveness of the modifier. There are no studies. I may add in a clue, which is how many times this particular modifier has been studied. It's more confidence level that this one is likely to have effect. Doesn't this? It's confidence on the likelihood of having an effect. It's not the relative effectiveness. I will add that. That's a reasonable piece of additional information, but it is not effectiveness, and that is something which is unfortunately currently missing. There are no studies for it. So let's get on and finish my ramble, which is the final act. Show me the statistical evidence. Show me the statistical evidence. And do not accept, trust me, I'm a professional. Often that is professional gaslighting. And if it's a commercial business, gaslighting is generally stock in trade. You support people with gaslight, anything to make you feel good, they will gaslight you on. Simple as that. Show me the statistical evidence. They should be open about the evidence. Since I'm not trying to sell anything or keep you as a customer, I show the evidence. I show the statistical significance. I show you everything from top to bottom. And the goal is, okay, I'm completely open. You can trace back all the data if you want to. And some people have. Occasionally I've spotted I made a typo somewhere. I had misclicked somewhere and had something increased when actually a decrease, which is fine. I take correction. But my general impression is well over 95% of my data is accurate. Some people would probably go for 99%. I'm happy with 95%. So basically, don't trust me. Trace back the data. All the data is linked or hyperlinked from the report. You can go and double check every single thing yourself to convince yourself that the data is supported by evidence, either studies or statistical evidence. Your computing odds ratio is possible because I do make the data available. 1 second. If you go to the site citizenscience microbiomeprescription.com what you will find is a whole bunch of CSV files, and that consists of all the samples which are being uploaded, the symptoms there, and sample lab taxonomy table, which is broken down by which lab it does, what the values are, etc. And so it's all sitting there. As you can see, it is 217 megabytes of data. They are big files, but all data is there. If you want to compute the odds ratios yourself, go free, download and compute the odds ratio. My goal is to be as open as possible, making all the data available, etc. The reason I can share the data is that it's declared on the upload that they accept that this will be anonymized and made available for people, for other citizens in science to take use. As you can see, data is updated usually once a week, so you are in good shape, so you always get current data, and then it has some sample reports there for anybody who is interested. So basically, that's it. My site is there. It's free. Make use of it. Everything is subject to change and fluctuation and improvement. But right now, I would say the reports being produced are gold standard. Everything is more documented and better than anybody else out there. And more importantly, all the mathematics and statistics is available there if you are interested in replicating the data, which is fine. And basically, it's there. Enjoy it, make use of it, and may you become more and more healthy. Okay,